Hey guys, Kevin here. This is kind of just like a quick tutorial kind of thing to get you started on how to make a furry tween animation if you don't know where to start exactly, or if you're just confused about something. I did this fully myself. It was rough. I messed up a few times, but I got it to work. So I'm just showing how I did it, and maybe you guys can learn a thing or two about it. So first step is obviously drawing it and organizing it into layers depending on the complexity you want to animate it with. So for example, in mine, I can animate the skull. Let me show you. I have all the layers here. So I can have like my skull with the big ear. My eyebrows are individually exported. My tongue and snout. Oh, that's my cat meowing. Those are individual layers. Basically everything you'd want to animate on its own, you would make into its own layer. So if you don't want to have like a character sticking their tongue out or moving their tongue, you wouldn't need those as separate layers. You can just draw those together. But obviously I made mine a little bit more complicated. So just imagine it as like a paper puppet, you know, with your layers. Might help you a bit. But basically my process, let me hide my PNG tuber real quick. My process was obviously making the sketch first. Now, obviously in the sketch, you see that there's a lot more scene than you do in the actual animation. I made my artboard 3000 by 3000 pixels. You don't have to make it as big. I just made it that big because I usually draw on a big canvas. And then inside of After Effects, my canvas is 2000 by 2000, I think, or let me make sure. Yes. So I cropped the 1000 by 1000 off. That way it'd be more like an icon. Or profile picture, whatever you want to call it. So in your drawing software, you would do your sketch first, obviously, for any parts. So mine was just, you know, my character itself, and then the paw. So I could animate that all at once. Now, you could also use, instead of dividing some stuff into individual layers, like for example, the fingers, if I wanted them to wiggle, I could put them on their own layers, but I could also use like a warp tool in After Effects to wiggle them a little bit. But I haven't used warping yet, so I'm not gonna lie and say I know how to. So if you can figure that out, awesome. But anyways, so first is the bust sketch, or whatever you want to sketch. And then after, I divided them into the separate layers. So you have the line art for each and every layer, which I color coded with red. And then I have the color underneath it for each of those layers. And I have the shade for each of those layers. You don't have to use shading, or you can use shading. Again, it's your complexity. But basically, once you have all your layers, I'll start going through them just in case to show you again. So I have my back ear layer, since that's all the way in the back. Then my hair, then my neck bust, then my eyes, then my eyelids, then my skull. Oops, hold on. Oh yeah, eyebrows. And then tongue, all on one layer. I made that just because, you know, it's just a tongue. I didn't have to divide that. The snout top, that hides what's underneath it. And then the paw, which is all, there we go. So yeah, basically organizing your layers is super important. Name them please, or else you will suffer. And then you export each part individually as a PNG. It's important to have a PNG, obviously, with a transparent background. And you export them each individual as layers. Please organize them, your files. For example, I called my file types tween 1 through 14, and then after the number is the body part that it is. And then once you have them all exported as PNGs, and you can bring them into After Effects, you see how I named them all? And then you just put them in your timeline. Now I made my FPS 12, so that way it has that little stop motion-y kind of look to it. so it's not super smooth. You can edit your FPS in your composition settings. Oh wait, it's 15, minor 15, my bad. In the GIF version, it's 12 frames per second, but in the video version, it's 15 frames per second. Like if I made it 30 FPS, obviously it'd look a lot smoother. See? So it's all preference. I like the choppier look though. Anyways, so once you're ready to animate it or tween it, I mostly use the position and transform tools for each layer. This isn't going to be a really in-depth After Effects tutorial. I'll just show you some very basic things I learned to use for certain things. For example, the hair wave. I could use the warp mesh tool to animate the hair strands if I had hair strands individually. But that would take forever for this kind of hairdo. So what I did was instead use the wave warp transform or wave warp effect to make it wave on its own. See? And then for example, the background, it's just a giant orange cube with a gradient on it, and I made it rotate 360 degrees. You know, just simple things that it'll help you out. Another very useful thing, having a null object as a parent for the skull or a group of objects. For example, I animated the eyelids, the eyebrows, the hand movement, the ear wiggle, all individually, right? I did them all separately. I tweened them all separately. And then when I was ready to move them all with the skull, for example, obviously they all move with the skull, because if I only touch the skull layer and I move that, obviously everything's not going to move with it because I'm only moving that layer. That's where the parent comes in. So once I'm ready to move everything with the skull, then I create a null layer, which is just nothing, null. And then I make everything, you see how all this stuff is parented to null 1? That means everything this thing does, these will do. So when I'm all ready to go, I make a null parent layer, parent them all to this one. And then I animate this layer, which is the transform for the skull for when he tilts his head down, and when he tilts his head up, and when he tilts his head back. So hopefully this will, you know, maybe inspire you, motivate you, or just clear some things up when it comes to tweening. I'm gonna have to practice my tween skills before I feel confident making a full in-depth After Effects tutorial. But yeah, this was all made with just transform and rotation keyframes. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Please have some patience. It does take some time. Make sure you save often, obviously. Please save often. I've messed up so many times. Yeah, I hope this was of some help, and good luck to anyone who wants to make their own.